Alright everyone, we're going to start by skinning our character today. So what you should have your rig under here. Let's just take a look quickly, a little recap. So you should have a little character looking like that. All your different bones, they should be nicely over top of all your joints. And the most important part that you had to pay attention to was that all of your pivot points on these guys was exactly where you want your pivots to be on your hands and legs and body and all that kind of stuff. So let's start. The first thing we do when we start skinning a character, we select our actual model and we add a skin modifier on it. You get it from the pull down list as well. I have it in my stack here. Just add a skin, and what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to attach the bones that we want onto this because this modifier is on the mesh. So if you scroll down here, there's a little section called bones with a little add button. You click add. And you see all these other things that we have here. I have a shape apparently I don't need. But there's these guys with little measuring tapes. We don't need those. We need the actual bones here. Now, if by default, if you select it, nothing gets selected in its children, if you open up the little plus sign there, what you're going to want to do is go to select and select children. And that way, if you select just the top bone, the pelvis, it'll select everything else. You don't want to have to go through and open up all these things and select every single one of these bones. There's quite a bit, so make sure that's on, hit select, and it will attach all the bones onto the skin, and it'll do its best to try and match your mesh onto this skeleton, your rig here. So if you take your foot controller and you lift it up, you'll see that your body's going to come with it. It's going to do some really terrible things like collapse your body like this or possibly take other parts of the leg with it. Make sure you undo any of the movement that you do when you're just kind of testing out. Same with this, you'll see I can move my hand around and it takes my arm, and it's not doing a very good job with all of that. So a little way to test it out. Just check it out. So, that's not the worst. But you'll see, definitely not game ready or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and clean up the skinning on this by attaching the verts to the bones that they're supposed to be controlled by. But before we can do that, we need to kind of understand how our character is going to move. Because right now our character looks fine. It's only when he starts moving that we start noticing that the skinning is bad in those in certain areas. And depending on how you move your character, so if I raise my leg up, you'll see it's collapsing this here, but then the butt looks kind of okay. Obviously the legs are doing some bad stuff. But then if I bring it up here, if he's doing, like a kick or something like that, or running, you'll see the butt's starting to collapse in on itself, and and it doesn't look good back here either. So even though we checked the front of it and it looked okay, the back of it, doing animation backwards, made it look bad. So what we're going to do first is we're going to create a range of motion animation just to help us do our job later on. So what I want you to do is select your triangle piece here, the base of your rig, and we can't just start animating our bones right off when we're using CAT. We need to use its animation tools a little bit to set a layer for it. So with that selected, go to your motion panel here, the little wheel with the motion blur on it, and you'll see here we have a little guy that says available. We're going to add animation layers in here. So there's this little button called ABS. If you click and hold on that, add an ABS layer, which is an absolute layer. We'll add an animation layer on there, and you could add multiple ones if you want, but we don't need that right now. So now that we have one, we are going to be ready to animate, and to do that, you're going to need to hit this record button here. It says setup/animation mode toggle. You're going to need to be in animation mode for this stuff to record. So click that on. You'll have a green button saying you're good to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to just record some really silly looking animations, but ones that are just going to help us with skinning. So I want you to select everything, and on your 0 frame down here, this is your yours is going to look like this. This is your timeline here. Each of these guys are frames. As you move this along, you change what frame it's on by saying what frame it's on out of how many frames this timeline has. So on your 0 frame, I want you to select everything and hit this giant key button over here, and it's going to set a key for you. And then advance this little guy by 1, just by clicking the little arrow there, and set another key. This is just to make sure that we can get back to our pose in case we screw something up, because animations are really easy to screw up, and sometimes you can't undo them. So I highly recommend, once you're kind of ready to go in the stage, save a backup file, because this stuff can go wrong really quickly. And save often when we're doing this with backups and all too. So next, what I want you to do is move your timeline here to about frame 20 or 15, whatever you like. It doesn't really matter. And then you're going to turn the auto key function on here, and you'll see your screen kind of goes red. There's a little red border around there, and that means we are ready to animate. So now what you could do is start grabbing some of these things. I'm actually just going to select everything. I don't really need keyframes on my mesh, but I'll just add them there anyways. I'm going to just add another key right here, just so anything I move will get set on here, and then when I move to the next section, it'll animate from this frame, not from the beginning. So on frame 15, just grab your foot controller here and just bring that up. Up maybe to the side a little. Alright, do that to the other one too. Imagine he's just kind of, jumping. Alright, maybe bring one a little higher, a little lower. Something like that. Maybe bend, you could actually freeze your mesh if it's getting in the way. You can bend your toe up a little. That. So that'll kind of take care of our legs. And then do the same thing with your arms. Raise your arms up. To raise your arms up, first raise your clavicle up higher. Even though it's not doing anything on the mesh, you got to kind of do it correctly. Whenever we raise our hands, our clavicles go up with us. So, act out any of the motions that you want to do if you're having trouble figuring out where your bones are supposed to go, or how your joints bend and that kind of stuff. There we go. So if you're rotating things and they're acting a little weird, that might be because you're set on view up here. Make sure you change to local before you start rotating. What that'll do is you'll see here that you see how my rotation axis is set to my grid basically. Oh, I have it on screen, sorry. And it doesn't kind of align with this bone. Now that's fine for doing certain animations, but you'll see when you get to like the fingers here, this would be really hard to try and actually animate this guy down. You'd have to go this way, then that way, real pain in the butt. When you change it to local, the little rotation gizmo will align itself to the axis of your bone. So then when you rotate things, you can actually just rotate them right along that axis, and it makes it a lot easier for you. So just rotate your hands around a little bit. All right, I'm going to take your wrists here, do them up. You'll see that's definitely not a good skinning. We don't want our entire arm to bend when we move our wrist. You can select all of your fingers at the same time, and then just rotate them all on one axis here, and that'll kind of curve them. You can make like a little fist with one hand. Something like that. Okay, it looks like my fingers are actually, they did a pretty good job skinning, which is surprising. Right, maybe do the thumb. There we go, we got a fist going on there. Maybe take your head as well and just move it up. Alright, and now you'll see, now that we have this animation, if you scroll back and forth, it'll animate it to that pose, and we'll kind of get to see all the things that are going wrong. And so as we fix the skinning and we move it up here, these problems will go away, and we'll know that we're doing a good job. So move your frames ahead to about 30. We're going to do a couple different animations. Select all of your animations here, or all your bones, and go back to your frame 1 or 0, and just marquee select them right beside the key, and select that. It'll select all the keys for that guy. And hold shift and just move your key along back to here, and it'll animate them back to the positions that you have there. All these keyframes do is they just record the rotation, position, scale, whatever it is you're adjusting, and of each of these bones. And so you can definitely move these things around. They're just values, and it'll interpolate them from one to the other. So what we're going to do here, the reason I wanted to set it back is I want to do a couple simple animations here just to help us get used to what we're doing here. So I'm just going to rotate my rib cage a little to the left, and if you notice here, if you watch it in there, it rotates all my spine bones just like a little bit at a time, which is exactly what we want from our skeleton. All right, and so maybe do like a little bit of an exercise pose here, a little stretching pose. All right, let's take a look at what we would look like, maybe stretching a head like this. There we go. And maybe I'll do my legs here, and I'll just bend them backwards like this. All I'm doing is animating the foot controller and maybe the toes or so. I usually don't animate too many different things with the legs. These animations don't have to look realistic. They just as a whole, but each of the motions needs to be a realistic motion that you would expect your character to do. So don't put him in any positions or poses where it's impossible for him to ever get into those. Because that's not going to help you unless it's how you're animating. If you're animating a really exaggerated character, that might help. There we go. So we'll do that way, and then what I might do is I might just select all my bones again, copy that over to I don't know, whatever, 45, and I might just do the opposite. I might just select my rib cage here and just do it the other way, just to cover our bases, make sure that everything is as it should be. Let's do that a little back, just kind of mirroring my animation here from the previous one. Alright, there we go. And then my legs, that should be pretty good for the legs. Maybe I could put them out on the side, like if he's doing like a side kick or something like that. Make sure that they're collapsing pretty good, because he should be able to do the splits or something like that, depending on, again, what I think my character might be doing. Right, this is a bit extreme, but if I wanted him to do something like this, should be able to do that. And then I'm going to go to frame 60 or so. I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to grab my keys over again, select all my keyframes, shift click this main keyframe over here, and this one I might just do some head movements. Just a look left. This one I'm just going to look right. Maybe just like a look back. And just a look down. Now you'll see that our keyframes here are different colors now, so this kind of depends what I'm animating. So I just animated the rotation, so they're just going to be green. If I animated the movement, it would add a red one, and if I animated the scale, it would add a blue one. So they're all kind of here. Even though we didn't animate the scale on these ones, it's because we hit this key button. It sets everything for that. So if you only animate rotation on one, it'll do that. So if I didn't have any rotation keys in the middle here, but I had movement keys, it would it would animate my rotation from here all the way to this key. So you kind of have to be careful with those things. But anyways, there we go. That's that's a decent range of motion. It's not perfect. I might actually do one more for this one here. Let me just select all my bones. I'll keyframe them from here to here, and then I might take my rib cage and just rotate it like pretty far back if my character is going to be stretching. And then here I might do the opposite. So I'm just going to go back here, keyframe everything, and then here I might do something like that. Maybe even rotate my pelvis down a little. maybe animate my pelvis down. There you go, he's ready for like a big jump. Alright, so that should be pretty good. Once you're done that, turn off auto key. Make sure you're not working in auto key mode, so make sure it's not red around there. Hit save, save a backup. I highly recommend always save a backup. Look at all my max files, bananas. So when you're ready to go, you can turn off your animation layer. And, oh, I guess you won't be able to see that. That's kind of annoying. Alright, so I guess you're going to stick with your animation layer. And what you're going to do is you're going to unfreeze your model if you had it frozen. You could actually just right-click on the model and go to Hide Unselected. You're actually not going to need to see your bones. They're going to show up in the Skin modifier. So go back to your modifier panel, select Skin, and click Edit Envelopes. So we'll talk about envelopes quickly here. So envelopes, what they basically try and do is, for every bone that you have, it's going to do its best to try and understand what verts you want attached to that bone. So if you think about these, see these little gray lines here going through your model, those are your bones. They're just representation of your bones. They're also in this list here if you want to ever select them one by one through a name, but you could also click them in here. You got to click right on that line, which is a little annoying, but it's nice that you don't actually have to have your bones visible to do this part of it. So what it does is for every bone, it's going to put this envelope around it, this little capsule kind of collider, if you will. And what it's going to try and do is it's going to just be like, hey, you know, anything in this little capsule on the inside, you see that like really red one, it's going to be 100%, and then from there it's going to fall off to 0. And so you'll see our colors are changing gradients from gray to blue to whatever. So gray means this bone will not affect any of these vertices at all. Blue will be, you know, maybe like 10%, and then so on, and red is 100%. And so the idea is that each of these bones needs to move the vertices around your body. So your arm's going to move, obviously these verts are in here, but also when you move your arm, it's going to move, you know, part of your chest, even a part of this arm. So if you move your, you know, if you think about moving your arm, it might, you know, affect some of the skin that you have on here, but not 100%. So you might, you know, only take like 10% of that, and then this bone here is going to take the rest of the 90. So each vertex needs to be weighed a total of 100% to a combination of bones. It doesn't have to just be one, and it also doesn't have to be multiple bones. For instance, our head bone is going to take 100% of our beard and our hair, because I don't want my chest or my clavicle or anything like that affecting the beard movement on its own without moving the head. And so you see right now part of my beard is yellow. There's a weird yellow line going through here, probably from a different sphere kind of connecting to it, or capsule. It's a little orangey here, so it's not 100%. So if I get out of skin, unhide my thingy here, I can Alt-X on these guys too if I want. You see if I move this around, it may not necessarily take all of my beard around. So if luckily all the other bones are kind of around there, so they may be okay, because they're all going to take it with there, but it's just not correctly assigned to that. And you'll see same with the armor. I don't want my head controlling my armor at all. When I move my head around, my armor should stay still if that's all I'm moving. You know, if I'm moving my neck or my chest around, that's fine. But so that's kind of the quick idea of what skinning is we're going to be taking every bone and assigning some verts to it. To control, and you really have to try and think about, you know, what everything should control. So you see my leg here, my thigh is going to, yeah, you know, it should be 100% of most of these parts of the pants. It should not be controlling the opposite leg. So we'll have to clean that up. Same with this. You'll see it's kind of blotchy and all over the place, and all that. So you're gonna have to kind of try and really think about what you want your mesh to control and how much. And the reason we did our range of motion is, you know, even though you see the color gradients here, and you can try your best to kind of understand how many, you know, how much verts or what verts it should control. Sometimes it's not just that simple. Sometimes you really have to just look at the animations, at the model, and be like, oh yeah, that doesn't look right in this instance. Can I do something to polish it out? And the nice thing is you can adjust all these things while in any of these keyframes, and it'll just get affected to the modifier itself. So let's take a look at how we do this. So the first thing we do, excuse me, is we just adjust these envelopes. So It's going to try and just make them the best size it thinks it can be, but we can adjust that size manually. So with start at the head here, select your head bone. See, I could grab these verts on these little rings on the capsules, and I can move these in and out. And you'll see the weighting starts to change, and you'll see now that if I do this and I only have I have 0% on that beard. If I move my head now, the beard will stay, and it'll be terrifying. And so we definitely don't want that. But we also don't want to be taking all of this armor with us, and honestly at this point with the envelopes there's not much you can do, so you kind of try and do your best to maybe establish some of these gradients around your neck, but then some things that you're capturing or not capturing, there's not much you can do about it with the envelopes, and that's okay. Don't stress too much and don't spend too much time on the envelopes, because they're there as just kind of general helpers. They're not the most useful things in the world. Unfortunately, a lot of this work is going to have to be, pretty manual. So that kind of sucks. You could also affect the inside cylinders there to try your best. You'll see sometimes your spine and other bones will just not capture any verts, which is definitely not what you want. And you could also see what you have selected in here. So now I have my rib cage, which should be taking control of a lot. But then these, spine bones aren't really taking control of much, which is not good. And you'll see these capsules again, because they're just these simple shapes, there's only so much they're able to do. So let's kind of do a quick little rough job here with these guys. Where's my pelvis here? It's sideways. Alright, so let's take a look. Most of that is kind of okay. Let's take a look how it's a little better. See, the chest is now bending a little better. When the arms go up, they're not taking parts of the chest with us. I can maybe try and do a little better job on the arms here. Alright, that's a little better. Again, you're going to get some really weird collapsing issues and things like that. Now let's take a look at the legs. They're doing all sorts of weird things here. Again, don't stress too much about this. Try and just get it, more or less looking okay. Right. That's probably as good as we're going to get with our envelopes, and that's totally fine. So our next step here is it's a little bit more tedious. Well, it's a lot more tedious, and I mean, skinning in general is not a fun process. So let's take a look at our next step here. So what we're going to do is you're going to want to think about, first and foremost, is there any things on your mesh that are going to be 100% weighed to any bone? And in my case, I do have some. I have my horns and my hair are going to be 100% to my head, even my head, 100%. I'm not going to have to even think about that. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to turn on this vertices little checkbox here right under Edit Envelopes, and this will allow me to select vertices on their own. Now that might be a pain in the butt for things like the head and the hair. And what you could do is use the Select Element checkbox here. So when you select one vert, it'll select everything on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to assign the actual weight percentages of these things manually. So with my bone selected, any of the things that I have selected in my vert mode, I can affect their weighing to the head right now. So the way we do that is scroll down here, and under your weight properties section, there's going to be this little wrench looking dude here. It's going to be a weight tool. Should look something like this. It's just a quick little tool just to help you do some of this a little faster. So I'm going to select my horn, my hair. Actually, let's just do the horns for now. So you'll see here, they'll tell you what bones they're affected by. So this one is just base human head, so that's all I got to do. They're already done. If I select my hair here, oh, I guess it probably doesn't like doing it on elements. So let me just turn that element off right now. If I select, let's say this one of these verts here, you'll see it's weighed between 61% to the human head, 38% to the rib cage, and I could click on all these and check out their percentages if I really wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the entire beard, and right here I'm going to have some numbers. These are my percentages. So 0 is 0%, 0.5 is 50, 1 is 100. So with my head bone selected, I'm going to select this beard. I'm going to click 1, and you'll see that's going to snap it right back to the head, and it turns it completely red because it's 100% controlled by the head. I can select my head model here too, and it's going to be weighed by a bunch of things as well, and I could do the same thing. And you'll see that kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Now, so that's kind of the easy part. You could do this for any sections that you have that might be this easy to do. Things like robots are really awesome like that because they're mechanical. They only have specific joints and places, not a lot of gradient kind of skinning, which is awesome. So you'll see here now that I put my head all the way up, attached to the head, it's brought my neck down. It's because my neck is a separate object. You may have that going on too. So what I basically want to do is I want to make sure that the edge of my head here, or my neck, right, all along its kind of endings is going to be 100% to my head. So that way it'll come with the head properly and then gradient down from my neck. So the way we can do that is we can start selecting things vert by vert. Now you can select, individual verts, which is a little painstaking, right? You can alt-X your model if you want to see the verts in there. But there's a couple little handy tools we can have here. If you select two verts beside each other, which if you imagine connecting a line between those two, you can use the loop tool to try and loop along that edge, and it did an okay job, but it kind of went through here, which is not exactly what I want. So I could just deselect those verts in the back, and I could set this 100% weight on there, and I could try my best to do that for the neck around, right around where it connects. I know it's a little bit of a pain in the butt to see. Unfortunately, that is just skinning in a nutshell, is a pain in the butt. There we go. So now you'll see that I'm attaching those edges right perfectly to the head, that attach the head as 100%. I know this gets a little messy with all the colors and the verts everywhere. You're gonna this is really good practice for learning to see in wireframe mode, which is something you're gonna have to get really good at if you're going to want to be a fast modeler, is just understanding how things look in this mode and being able to really recognize your mesh and really see the lines attached to each other. You just follow the edges like this. That always helps. Change views, make sure that you are selecting the correct things and so forth. Alright, so I think I got them all here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them 100%. You'll see now the head, the neck will nicely go with that. So the one problem we're having here is that it's these polygons here are stretching really badly, and aren't really nice. It's not a nice gradient, right? It goes red right to yellow. So what we might want to do is loop this guy here. And we can use a couple features. We could use this blend button here, which will try and blend between the two, kind of locations or weights between these two things. So I could do that for this one here as well. Let's just try and blend those up. It's kind of like a relax tool in a way. All right, just try to average it out. It's really hard to get gradients sometimes, so this is a really nice tool to do so. And what I might want to do here, because this is just my head bone right now, if you think about it, it's affecting quite a ways down on my chest here. So I might go here and just start setting these guys to 0. When you set something to 0 on one bone, it's going to actually change the weight on another bone. So if I undo that here, if I select one of these verts, you'll see it's here on 94% or 96% to the rib cage, and then 3%, almost 4% on the human head. By me turning it to 0 on the head, it's going to make it 100% on the rib cage here. You'll see. So verts cannot just be 0 to nothing. So remember that. Sometimes you might want to zero something out, and it won't let you. It'll just stay its color. That's because that's the only bone it's connected to, and it can't just be nothing. So keep that in mind if you're having any weird problems. So I might go through here and might, you'll see what happens if I start setting these things too high. Right, so I might want to, even maybe these guys will be 0, and then maybe this ring right or loop right here will be a 0.1. Maybe kind of blend it somewhere in between there. There we go. So, you're gonna have to get some stretching. That's just how it goes. Skin is very elastic and all that. But that's already starting to look better on the head side. There we go. It's good to have your texture on there too, right? Check it out with your texture. You'll see, yeah, it's stretching quite a bit there. I might want to, maybe include some more of the clavicle and the area there. Maybe this will be like 0.25 or something, and then I'll blend. I'll do a loop and just blend these guys up a little more. And then maybe take these guys here and do a 0.1 on them. And then maybe loop this one and just blend that a little bit too, so that way it's a little, there's a little bit of movement there. So you'll see it's a little better, a little less stretching. Sometimes you're not going to be able to avoid that. I mean, that's just the nature of that. So let's take a look at my left and right here. The neck looks pretty good. There's a little bit of weird kind of collapsing here, but I'm also just rotating the head. I would I rotated them pretty far. I would probably start rotating the clavicles and things like that too. So that's not bad. Oh, I'm getting a really weird bulge back here. I must have missed something back here. Or just the blend isn't nice and smooth. Like here, you'll see it's yellow here, and then it goes back to blue there for some reason, which is a big no-no. So you take a look here at what this is, and start trying to smooth out some of these guys as well. So let's loop that, and maybe you got to do these a little bit manually. So if this guy is 0.25 to the head. Maybe that'll be a 0.25 as well. Maybe this will be 0.25 is probably too much. All right, we could do 0.5. Oh, whoops, I screwed up some of my stuff there. You'll see that is part of the nature of working on skinning. You will mess up things that you had working really nicely before, but that's okay. I mean, that's just how it goes. So I'm just going to blend this a little more. You see, because I looped those things here, I undid the 100% wing I had to the very edges of these things, which is a big no-no here. Alright, let's just go to the other side. It's like that's the nice thing about doing animations too, is it lets you get to maybe parts of your model that would be really hard to get to otherwise. So let's just select this loop here and just blend him a lot better. Sometimes you gotta break some things, and then you can use blend to kind of fix them up. Well, sometimes it's just going vert by vert and just cleaning up some stuff. I know that's the worst when you have a high poly model or higher poly model, but if you get really good at this, you'll kind of understand the problems you're making for yourself and kind of be able to catch them earlier on. But unfortunately, a lot of it is just trial and error, and you know, doing your best to make sure it doesn't suck. There we go. Let's see what that looks like. That's a little better. All right, no collapsing. Back of the neck looks nicer. It's not the best, but it's pretty good. Let's go back to our up here. That looks nicer too. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with the head there. And we're just gonna start moving on down or up. You know, you can start with your feet or your head, whatever you like. You know, with our feet here. Let's take a look there. Let's go. Let's take a look at some of the different movements we got going on. So that's not bad. We got our toes here. You know, depending on where you want things. So sometimes what you're going to have is your envelopes are just going to do, you know, an okay job at some of this stuff. And what you might have to do is go through here and select, you know, say these are the toes that I know are always going to be 100% to my toe bone here. Set those to 1. And then what you could do is you could actually go, you can grow this, right? And sometimes it's nice just to start from scratch. So go to 0, and then shrink that down a couple times, and maybe this will be a 0.1, maybe more, maybe like a 0.25, and then shrink, 0.5, shrink, you know, 0.75, and shrink again. That'll be 1. So that way you can get a nice manual gradient. You might want to just select some of these areas here, set those down to 0, and then, you know, you can start looking at how is that bending. Is that pretty good? You know, maybe maybe that's a little low, so you can loop, right? And you know, either use blend or set some straight up numbers in there. So, you know, how does that look like with 1? Oh, that's not good. 0, definitely not good. You know, try and figure out where those belong. Sometimes, you know, you can just do that and just do a blend. Sometimes you have to, you know where that's going to go. All right, there you go. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now let's take a look at the ankle here. We got that one kind of going downwards. That looks pretty good too. That's a nice bend. Alright, I guess I didn't do a lot of range of motion for my ankle, so I might have to go through and add some animations and you know, take a look at how that's going on. Oh, let's take a look at these legs here. That's looking terrible. So, you know, same thing for these guys here. You might want to just select, you know, a loop and then grow that out a bunch. Right, select 0 to that, and you'll see I selected 0, but it's still completely red here because those verts just aren't assigned to anything else. They were already 100%, so they can't be 0 to anything but that. So we could go, you know, 0.1, 0.25, 0.5, and then 1. You know, so that might be okay. It might be terrible. Let's take a look at what's happening over here. So here, obviously, I probably need a higher. You know, something like that. You know, maybe these. something like that. There we go. That's pretty good. And you'll see here that I have my my leg selected, and these guys are blue. I don't want any of those, so I just select all the verts on this side and just hit 0. I could do the same thing for the other side here. Just hit 0. And then same thing for that. Just, you know, obviously the other half of the body is just not going to be, shouldn't be affecting my other side of the leg. So, all right, so we got that. Let's find a nice bend here. So bends are really hard because you're going to want a nice kneecap in the front, and then you're going to want a nice clean bend in the back too, which is usually really hard to get. Oops. Loop. So let's take a look. See, if I do too much weight on the top bone, it won't curve over really nicely. If I do too little, then it'll bubble too much. So a lot of this again is going to be a hard kind of call here. And sometimes, you won't be able to do a whole loop at a time. So if you see here, if we add 1 to there, or 0.9, or even 0.5, 0.75, you'll see like maybe that curve is starting to look good, but then it's collapsing really poorly in here. So you might have to do a 0.5 on that, and then just start doing, like a higher number on there. You could also use these set weights here. It'll let you kind of go in increments of plus or minus if you don't like using the hard numbers or blend isn't working for you. You can use those guys here to just try and set some of that up. That's definitely not working for me. All right, definitely something went wrong there. Let's just straighten you out a little. See where these problems are starting. So I think the other problem is that these guys still think they're weighed to this bone here. That's why they're going all the way over there. So that's not good. Let's make sure that they're weighed up in here. So sometimes what you might even want to do is actually select a bunch of these loops here. All right, let's do a loop. So you see I have my shin bone selected right now. Just gonna grow this out a little bit. I'm gonna make it look terrible at first. You'll see that's obviously not what I want for sure. I'd select my my thigh bone in here and kind of try and undo this one by one. So that'll probably be a 1 for now. So let's do that one there, a little bit straight on at first. All right, there we go. So maybe that knee's looking better. Maybe not. We'll have to take a look what it looks like with the texture on and off. So we're definitely getting a lot of intersection here, right? Which is going to be always a really tricky part. And I mean, you're only going to be able to solve it so much. After a while, you're going to have to start doing some advanced skinning stuff with doing different blends and meshes and all that kind of stuff, which gets really complicated, but is really awesome. So let's take a look here. We got our thigh selected, so let's just start maybe putting a little bit of that weight onto the leg here. All right. So let's just maybe grow out some of these here. And then start just minusing them just a little bit. Alright, again, this is a painstaking kind of operation here. Right, and you want to keep your edges as nice and flowy as possible. You know, because your textures are going to start warping if you're not doing a really great job keeping those things together. So let's take a look at what we can do for this guy here. If we add him, you know, you're going to start getting some weird collapsing issues here, and so on. So again, a lot of it is just kind of trial and error, figuring it out. Alright, so it's looking a little better here already. You know, this other side still needs some work. Alright, so let's take a look at that here. It's not bad. A little bit of crunching isn't too bad, especially for things like pants and cloth and all that. So let's take a look at that. Right? I mean, yeah, if I go too far back, I'm gonna get some crunching. But I mean, at some point, there's just not much I could do about that. It's just gonna be more, you know, on me when I'm animating to make sure that you know, that's looking okay, and you know, maybe that's a little funky too. I might want to clean up some of that. Alright, let's take a look here. Oh, hey, look, we're still getting some crazy verts up in here. So you'll see, you know, even though it looked pretty cool with you know, with the one area or one animation, it looks really bad on another. And sometimes it's because your verts, you see this one's like weighed to a whole bunch of stuff. So sometimes you might want to just weigh something 100%. And then just kind of, you know, change it up from there. All right, that's kind of why we did all these animations and stuff, is because your model is just going to look really different from everything, from every different pose and angle and all that. There's not much you can catch if you don't do those animations right off the bat. Alright, so this is going to take a little bit of work here too. Let's try and smooth out this crotchish area right here. Right, again, try and keep a nice edge flow going with all these guys as best as you can. Right, try and avoid zigzagginess and all the kind of stuff we talked about when we were modeling. It all applies all the time. So let's make it look good in this pose and see what that does to some of the other poses here. All right, get some nice kind of clean up here. Let's get rid of these yellow little spots here. I don't like that. Don't know what they're being influenced by, but I don't care. All right, let's clean up some of this. These areas are always really tricky. Oh, I don't know where that is. Oh, that's the belt. Alright, so that looks better than this side here. It's still not great. We're still getting like a really weird kind of bend there. But I want to see how this kind of affected some other areas. Yeah, that actually doesn't look too bad. Kind of looks like pants folding in. But you know, my belt might want to go up a little bit when I raise my legs. And my butt's still looking really stretched out here, especially if I I don't have my fully nicely textured dude here, but obviously that belt is not working for me right here, going through my body. And all that. So I'm not gonna record a video of me just weighing this whole thing all the way through. Hopefully you guys got the basic idea, working out the neck and some of these areas here. You'll see the work we did on this one leg looks a lot better than what's left on the other one. So just go through and it's painstaking, but just keep skinning away until you're pretty happy, until he looks as best as he can in all these different animations. He or she or it, I know some of you guys are doing robots. And, do your best for that, and try and, just do what you can with it. Again, a lot of it's just trial and error, just doing it over and over until you get better at skinning these things. And a lot of it's patience. So hopefully that helps, and continue on with that, and we'll do our final tutorial of getting our characters into Unity and animating a little bit as well. So that'll be that. Thanks.